So, real quick, I just wanted to go back over the procedure for creating your graphs in Microsoft Excel. I know it's kind of a complicated process, so I wanted to make this short video to kind of help you along with it. So here I have my Microsoft Excel file that has all my data nicely typed into it. And the big thing that I want to point out is that notice in each column or each cell, there's only the number. I don't have any units in any of the cells. The only units, all of the units are located in the top bars in parentheses with what the column is. That's very, very important that you don't put your units inside the cells with the numbers. Otherwise, your graphs won't come out. So the next thing I want to do is notice how these cells over here are really big. These cells are really, really small. So I want these cells the same size as these cells over here. And so the way I can do that is by highlighting my three cells, because there's no need to have three separate cells that say the same thing. I'll go to Format, and then Alignment, and then Merge. Press Enter, and it merges them into one cell with the one value. And so I can just do it real quick with all three of them, and then I'll be ready to make my graphs. Okay, the other thing I want to point out is this first data table that I'm looking at is the data table that corresponds to all of the measurements that I made with the marble at the 0.4 meter mark on the ramp. This next data table is with the marble at 0.6 meters up the ramp, and then the last data table is at 0.8 meters up the ramp. It's very, very important that they're grouped that way for their graphs to come out correctly. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is go up to Insert, and then there's a bunch of different chart options. Somewhere there should be a scatter plot chart option. And again, if you're not using this exact same version of Microsoft Excel or Office, it's not going to look exactly the same, but there is a scatter plot option somewhere with whatever program you're using. So I prefer this middle one that has the dots and the lines. I'm going to click it. And it gives me my graph, but obviously this isn't the graph that I want. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click in this white area right here. Don't click inside the graph, but click in the white area up here and go down to Select Data. I need to tell the program what data to graph. Okay, and so depending on how yours is set up, there may be all kinds of different stuff right here in this box, but you want to start by just removing everything that's in there. Just hit remove until it's completely blank. We want to start from a fresh, clean graph. Now we're going to press Add to add our data sets. And we see the little dialog that pops up. It asks us to name our series. So I'm going to name this first series Height Up, or I'll just call it Ramp Height 0.4 meters, because this is data that correlates to the marble being at 0.4 meters on the ramp. So for the series X values, rather than typing anything, I'm going to click on this little box over here, and that allows me to just highlight the data that I want on the x-axis. For this first graph, I want time on the x-axis, so I'll highlight those three boxes. Notice I only highlight the 3 times. And I press Enter, and then with the next one, I can do the same thing to enter my y-axis data. And I want distance on the y-axis, so I highlight those 3 distances. Oops. And then I press Enter. And then I press Enter again, and it adds the data set right there. And so that creates our first graph. And we can see the 3 data points from that data. Now I want to add data for when the marble was placed at 0.6 meters up the ramp. So I'm going to label this next one Ramp Height 0.6 meters. And then again, for series X values, I'm going to click the box and highlight the data for the x-axis, which is the times. But now I'm going to move down to the next data table that correlates to 0.6 meters up the ramp. And then I'll highlight the y data as well, which is the distances. And then once it's in there, I press OK, and it adds it to the list. Now I'm going to add a third one of ramp height 0.8 meters. And so then for my x values, I'm going to click and highlight the times for my last graph that correlates to 0.8 meters up the ramp. And then I'll click again and highlight my distances. And then I click OK one last time. And then once I have all three of them right there, I click OK, and I'm done with my graph. Gives me a nice graph just like this. The only problem is it's a little small. So I'm going to go ahead again. I'm going to right click in some white space. Don't click inside the graph here. But I'm going to click on the outer edge right here and select Move Chart and put it in a new sheet. This just makes the graph nice and big, and it's easier to read, and it's not covering up part of my data tables or anything like that. So now the last thing that I need to do is I need to label my x and y axis as well as give a title. So I can do that really easily by looking at this little button right here, Quick Layout. It may have a different name with different versions, but essentially it's the same thing. It gives all these different options for graphs. And we can see as I hover over one, it gives a preview of what it will look like. The one we want is this first one. Notice when I select it, it gives us an axis title down here, an axis title up here, and a chart title, and then a legend over here. Those are the four things that I want. So once that's there, I can go ahead and just type in and change our title. I'm going to call it distance versus time, because that's what the graph is. And then for my axis, I'll do the same thing. I can just type in my axis. On my y-axis, I have distance. However, I also want to include the units that I was measured in. In this case, it was meters, so I put an M in parentheses. And then I'll put the last one, which is my x-axis, which is time. And then I'll put in parentheses an S for seconds. And that's all there is to making your graph. Now I'm going to return back to my data table, and we have to make one more graph of distance or velocity versus time. So I'm going to follow the same procedure, but instead of highlighting distances, I'm going to highlight velocities. So again, I'll go to Insert, I'll go to Scatter Plot, pick the same one as before. I'll do Move It, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Go to Select Data. And I'm going to delete everything that's in this first box. And I'm going to add, and I'll give it the same title as before, ramp height 0.4 meters. Oops, forgot to add the data. Okay, so I can click on this little button, and I can highlight my data. On my x-axis, I still want time. So I'm going to highlight the times again, press Enter. But for my y-axis, this time, I'm going to highlight velocity. And then once I do that, I hit OK, and we can see it gives us our first two data points. So I'm going to do that again with all of my data points. Okay, so here we have my completed graph. I went ahead and added all three data sets in the same fashion as I did the last one. I moved it to its own page, and I added axis titles, time, velocity with units, a title, and I still have my legend right here. So now the only thing left, now that I have my two graphs, is to put it in our lab report in Microsoft Word. So I haven't actually typed a lab report, but let's pretend that I have. And so I have my objective, my procedure, all of that. I have my data, and now I just need to put in my graphs. Putting in your graphs from Excel is really easy. We just go to the graph that we want. Again, in the white space in the edges, don't click in the center. Click on the white space in the edges. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select Copy, go to Microsoft Word, and I'm just going to again right click, paste. And it puts my graph right in there. And then I can come in and I can resize it. I can make it smaller, bigger, so that it fits nicely. I can make it really skinny, really fat, whatever. you want to do, but make sure that it is a nicely sized graph. Remember, we're not printing this report, so it doesn't matter if it's 10 pages long. So leave your graphs a decent size so I can read them. So then I can skip a space, and I can go back to Excel. I can grab my second chart, copy it, and then paste it into Microsoft Word as well. And so there are my two graphs. And then down here at the bottom you can see I can still type, I can finish, continue my lab report, and put everything else that I need. I can also, if I need to, or which I recommend you guys do, you can come in here to your graphs, or your tables rather, and highlight all of your tables. 3 of them. Highlight all of your data, copy it, and then go back to Microsoft Word and paste it. And so you can see real quickly and easily it puts all of your data into Microsoft Word. And it's very neat and very clean looking, far better than handwriting it, and it's far easier than handwriting it and doing all these graphs by hand and such. And so there we go. That's how you can put all of your data into your lab report in less than 10 minutes. Hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions.